my coat and, snatching the bag of roll and coffee, caught the elevator upstairs. Although by then I had worked for the Times for 4 years, mostly as a writer on religion and education, I had never been to the publisher's floor. I followed a stream of latecomers through the suite and up a winding staircase to a large and elegant penthouse lounge. I was struck by the stately cherry woodwork, the framed antique maps and sketches of ocean liners, the soft carpets. I didn't want to spill coffee on these carpets. That would reveal that I really did not belong here. The penthouse room was filled with more than 100 reporters and editors, including management people like Max Frankel, Warren Hogue, and Dave Jones, who were sitting in the club chairs at the front. I felt an air of formality unusual even for the distinctly formal Times of those years. Almost all the men had their jackets on. I spotted an empty seat 2/3 of the way toward the back, and, still holding my bag of coffee in the seated roll, I slipped in. Young Sulzberger, in shirt sleeves, crisply pressed trousers, and bright red suspenders, was talking about how the Times had teetered on the edge of financial failure in the early 1970s, but had emerged gloriously by investing in a new printing plant and boldly starting several sections that invigorated advertising. The Times, once again, needed to expand. It was building a $400 million plant that would allow it to produce a bigger daily paper and use color for almost every section. When all the changes were in place, Sulzberger assured us the Times' position as the best newspaper in the world would be enhanced. I looked around and was glad to be part of this robust operation as it headed into the next decade, glad to be included among these smart, important men and women, glad to be a reporter on the world's best newspaper. But my smugness was interrupted by a panicked thought. I was holding my brown paper bag and it was tearing. Coffee had seeped through the lid, weakened the bag, and dampened the roll. It would be awkward to drink coffee in this group. I was hungry and thirsty, but I would just have to wrap my fingers around the soggy container and wait until after the meeting to throw it away. Otherwise, as I had feared, my colleagues would surely realize I did not belong here. And that realization would be corroborated by the seated roll, which would reveal that I was deeply rooted in another incompatible world, a world not just of seated rolls, but of baggy suits, gaunt faces, and hollow eyes, a world of refugee parents who couldn't speak English and fumbled their way around American life. This thoroughly trivial event, bringing a cup of coffee and a seated roll to a publisher's pep talk, was like Proust's famous Madeleine. It had triggered for me the kinds of associations that ripple subversively throughout my days. Like many immigrants and children of immigrants, I have always lived in 2 worlds at the same time. There's my American world, jobs at prestigious companies, a co-op on the West Side or a house in the suburbs, evenings at the theater and summers in the Berkshires. And there's the immigrant world that tinges all that comfort with a sense of raw peril, terror of imminent poverty, and sometimes an awareness of one's foreignness. To be sure, it also lives on in an ability to laugh at the pretensions of life and even, occasionally, in a kind of immigrant pride at how much we have accomplished. But its virtues are soon outweighed by the hovering fear that all will be snatched away by some malicious whim of the universe. For isn't that what happened to my parents and their generation of European Jews? In me, those immigrant feelings have been sharpened to a fine keenness by the fact that my parents were not simply immigrants, but refugees from the catastrophe that distinguished World War II from all previous wars. 2 of the more than 140,000 Jewish Holocaust survivors who immigrated to America between 1946 and 1953. These survivors didn't come here just as foreigners seeking America's legendary opportunities. They came here because they had no place else to go. They had been stripped of their homes, their parents, their brothers and sisters, their villages and neighborhoods. That occasional jolt of fear that I felt at the Times that day, and sometimes still feel, is part of my legacy. I'm a refugee, and somewhere I will always